Hey, Flower Tribe. Thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Kelly Lehman, and if we haven't met yet, it's nice to meet you. I'm the owner of Cranberry Fields Flower Farm here in Cranberry, New Jersey, and I love giving you guys fun, free flower tips. So today we're going to talk hydrangeas because we have a ton of questions and comments from our Flower Tribe related to hydrangeas. And I know it's a super popular time of year to start putting these gals in the garden. But there's a lot of mystery behind them, how to get them to bloom, what's the best planting practices? Should I fertilize them? Should I prune them? Should I not prune them? So we're going to cover some of those questions today. And I thank you for joining me. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to hop on. We're live today. And if you can't watch this whole live stream, no worries, because I'm just going to keep it posted on this YouTube channel. So there's a way to save the live stream so you can always catch us later if you're kind of rushing out the door. Don't worry, this will be up on this YouTube channel and you can watch it whenever you want. So let me know, can you guys hear me? Let's see, Natalie, let's see, what's a good hydrangea for southern sun exposure? I'm not a fan of limelight. Okay, so I'm glad you brought that up, Natalie, because limelight hydrangea is a great hydrangea for southern exposure. I know that you're not a fan of it, but for those of you that haven't checked out limelight yet, please do, because it can take a lot of sun, and it's a really beautiful plant, but not everybody loves it. I happen to love it, but some people don't. And if you don't, Annabelle would be a great alternative. So Annabelle hydrangea or Incredible hydrangea are those hydrangeas that are the white poofy, like snowball type blooms on them, and they can take the heat also. So here's the thing with the Annabelles and the Incredibles. So Annabelle hydrangea have like really beautiful, heavy, giant, almost like soccer ball size blooms on them. But the stems aren't that sturdy all the time. So a lot of times a heavy rain will come and it will knock your Annabelles to the ground. And so they came out with a different variety called Incredible. And it has those same big, huge, giant, colossal white blooms, but the stems are just a little bit sturdier. So you might want to check that out. And those do really well in southern climates with a lot of sun. But I have to say, I read everywhere and I take a look at all the care tips on it. And it says, it does great when it's in direct sun, even for more than like 8 or 9 or 10 hours. But mine burn up if they're not in shade in the afternoon for a little bit. So even though all the care tags and everything else says, Annabelle is going to be terrific, even in full sun, when you're planting it, I would try to give it some afternoon shade, especially if you're in like a southern climate, because those temps get really super hot. So Annabelle hydrangea is a great hydrangea for, the south, limelight hydrangea, and then they have little lime. So there's a little lime hydrangea that's a smaller version of that. And if you're not sure what a limelight hydrangea looks like, it has beautiful like cone-shaped flowers that start off white, and then in the fall they turn this beautiful green, and they get like this chartreuse color. And little lime does the same thing. So they're like, the little lime is going to be about, I think they'll grow to like 3 to 5 feet. And so the lime, like the regular limelight hydrangea, I have ones in my garden right now that are like, I think like 15 to 18 feet tall. They're like these monsters. They're huge. So there's also a smaller version of the Annabelle hydrangea called, one of them is called Bobo. So if you have a smaller, more compact area where you want a beautiful white hydrangea, check out Bobo. And that's kind of like, the little baby sister to the Annabelle and to the Incredible. Let me just say hi to some other people that are checking in now. Oh, thanks for letting me know where you guys are checking in from. Lori Metcalf, thank you for letting me know that you're in Canada, Zone 3B. It's really fun to see where you guys are watching this from all across the globe. So let me know, in the comments below and in the live chat where you're from. And then sometimes in future videos, I love giving you guys shout outs for saying, hey, thanks for letting me know where you're reviewing it from. It's just so fun to see how our flower tribe is growing around the globe each week. It's really fun. And I also wanted you guys to know that some of you had asked for a place to put like your own like images and pictures and questions about your flowers. And so I created a Kelly Lehman Flower Tribe Facebook group. So if you go onto Facebook and just, put in, like the search Kelly Lehman's Flower Tribe, it'll pop up, and it's a great place for you guys to post pictures of what you're growing in your own gardens from around the world. It's so fun to see like pictures from people's gardens in like the Caribbean and Norway and San Francisco and New York. And then you can post garden questions there too. And so I try to pop in there like 2 or 3 times a week. But in the meantime, I encourage all of you to like answer each other's questions and help each other out with some planting tips. And it's turning into like a really fun space. So check that out. I'll put links to that below in descriptions. And I hope to see you guys over there. So let's see who else is here. We've got Lorna Kiddo, incredible. Yep. Did I say something? Did I say incredible before? Yeah, it's the incredible hydrangea. Thank you for that. James E. Hi, Kelly. Northeastern exposure in Georgia. Okay, so James E. wanted to know, what is my recommendation for a northeastern exposure in Georgia? So listen, I have to say, I always give like, it's almost like a standard answer to like with the hydrangea planting. If you can do morning sun and afternoon shade, I find that does best, no matter like where the exposure is. But if you're like, facing north most of the time and you're not getting a ton of sunlight, you want to make sure that your hydrangea gets at least like 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, or at least 6 hours. In a southern temperature, you can definitely get away with 6 hours. In more northern, I would try to get like 6 to 8 if you can. So just, hopefully that's kind of helpful. That's just what I found here on the flower farm. I know that other people might like to give their flowers like less sunlight or more, but that's what kind of works out here in like my northeast garden. South Carolina. Hey, Donna Hennings, thanks for checking in from there. Oh, good question. Madeline Mayer said, how do I know if my hydrangeas aren't getting enough sun? Okay, so one indication that they're not getting enough sun is they're probably not going to bloom. So there's a lot of reasons why your hydrangeas may not bloom. And I actually have a few videos that go over like each of these specific things, and I'll link those videos below. But one of them is that they're not getting enough sun. And what's probably going to happen is you're probably going to have like, the green leaves, and the plant probably won't look sick, but you may not get the blooms because you need that extra, sunlight to get that bloom production going. So that probably is one of the signs that your plant is not getting enough sun. And I don't know, maybe like you having problem like with your leaves maybe, or the leaves aren't quite as lush. That might be like another indicator. Or if they're just kind of staying the same size. Like a lot of times you can put a hydrangea in the ground and, each year it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. If you put your hydrangea in the ground and it just kind of stayed that same size and it isn't thriving, there's a good chance that it's not getting enough sunlight. But I have to say there's a lot of other reasons why it might not be blooming. So sometimes people prune their hydrangeas at the wrong time of year. So if you have like an endless summer hydrangea, those are like the purpley blue blooms that come out. Sometimes they're like a pinkish purpley blue version, or a Nico hydrangea. Those have a lot of blooms that are set in place the fall before the summer season. So like my endless summer hydrangeas that are going to be blooming in, a couple months, all those blooms were set in place last fall, 2020. The fun COVID year, 2020. And what happens is if you go in there and you kind of prune back that hydrangea, like at the end of winter or now early spring, a lot of people go out there and they'll start pruning everything to death. You're going to cut off all of those blooms that should be coming in the summer. And so the plant's going to, recharge itself, and you're going to have beautiful green leaves, but you had gone in there by accident and cut off all those blooms. So that's the case with Nico hydrangea, because their blooms only come in on that old wood. Endless summer, half the blooms come in on that old wood. So if you were to have pruned it back, you would have gotten rid of the blooms that you would have seen in, say, like June and July. However, endless summer is awesome because endless summer hydrangeas have a second burst of blooms that come in at the end of summer. And they come in from new growth that starts from the bottom of the plant. So I have a whole video on that. It's called How to Get More Blooms from Your Hydrangea. And I walk you through step by step. And I think that video has gotten like 1 million views. So I'll link that one below too, because it's really helpful in just explaining this like in a little more detail. But the good news is, guys, if you pruned your hydrangea back at the wrong time, it's not a big deal. I mean, the worst case scenario is you might be missing out on some blooms this year. And a lot of people like to kind of give their hydrangea like a recharge like that, because it will make it like, you know, burst into more blooms like the following year. So don't worry if you pruned it at the wrong time. If you did it with the endless summer, you're going to miss out on the first flush of blooms, but you will get the second flush of blooms, and they're probably going to be spectacular. And if you have like the limelight hydrangea that we talked about before, or the Annabelle hydrangea, those blooms come in on what's called new growth. So you can't prune them back, you know, like at the wrong time, unless you prune them back like in like late spring. Because right now on those hydrangeas, on Limelight, Annabelle, Incredible, all those little tiny green stems are just starting to break forth from the soil. And by like the end of spring, you're going to start seeing just the green stems coming up. And then by like the beginning of summer, that's when those blooms are being put in place. So it's okay to kind of cut back some of your limelight hydrangeas. In about 2 or 3 weeks, you can start cutting back like your Annabelles in 2 or 3 weeks, because all that dead stuff you're cutting off doesn't have the buds in place like the Endless Summer and the Nico do. So you can kind of cut those back. But you don't have to. I have to say, I leave my Annabelle hydrangea intact. I only do like a little cleaning up around like the top. I'll kind of do some deadheading and cut off some of those hydrangea like crispy like brown blossoms, and then I just let like the new growth kind of take over. So anyway, let's see what's going on here. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Oh, from South Alabama. Hi, Andrea. Let's see. Oh, okay. So Kevin Bering said, hi, Kelly. I just planted Annabelle, but it looks like sticks. Yeah, it's going to grow. So like, listen, right now is like a great time to go to your garden centers. And even like at the end of fall, I love buying plants that look crappy, because usually they're like a little less expensive. So right now my Annabelles look like just straw sticks coming out. They look horrible. But I know that they're going to be like these lush, gorgeous green leaf plants with giant white, you know, like snowball type blooms on them in just a few months, because Annabelle is one of the first hydrangeas to bloom. So yes, if you are in like your garden centers now and they're selling Annabelles and they just look like, you know, kind of like stickly, it's probably okay. Just make sure it's like a reputable garden center, or like Home Depot or Lowe's. They usually sell, you know, like pretty good stuff. They don't want to get a bad rap. So yeah, it's okay to put them in. And someone else, I have a couple questions that people had asked me on some of the other garden videos that we had on like the hydrangea playlist. I think I have like 10 videos on my hydrangea playlist that I'll link to this too. You guys can kind of binge watch all the hydrangeas. Then you could also see what these beauties look like. It's so cold right now that I'm doing a lot of these live videos streaming from my house, because I have really bad Wi-Fi out in the garden and it's freezing. So I guess we'll have our chat here. And then if you want, you could binge watch to actually see what they look like. So somebody had asked me, about the sticks that come out of the hydrangeas. He said, you know, I don't know whether or not I can pluck out like the dead wood. Like, what's the story with that? And the story with the dead wood in your hydrangeas is, yes, you can pluck out those dead sticks anytime you want. Because if you kind of like give it a tug and it comes off, you know, out of the plant like very easily, especially from the base, it means it's just a dead cane. And so that doesn't have any buds on them. Like it's just, and if you kind of crack it in half or just like cut it with a clipper, you'll see like it's pure white or it's hollow. So those dead canes you can take out of the plant anytime you want, but be super careful, because you want to make sure that you don't like cut out or take out like those dead looking canes from like your Endless Summer or like your Nico. Because even though they look kind of brown, if you like cut, like do a little like inch cut on that plant towards the top, you'll see the inside is probably green. And if you really take a good look at that stem, it's probably got those little buds in place, even though they might not look so terrific, but those are your flowers. So make sure that you don't cut out those kind of dormant branches, thinking that they're dead canes. Dead canes, I mean, if you give it, like I said, you give it a tug, it's going to come out easily. Or if you give it a clip, it's going to look hollow and white. And that's how you know it's a dead cane. And pluck those out anytime you want. Let's see who else is here. Okay, Carol DeBerg says, what's the best time to move a Nico that hasn't been growing after 6 years? Terrific question. So the idea when you're moving plants is you always want to do it when they're dormant. You don't want to do it when they're having like a big growth spurt and you're seeing like a lot of new fresh growth and you're seeing like a lot of, flowers, because you don't want to put the plant in shock. So the best time to move a hydrangea would be in fall, like, kind of like towards late fall when everything's kind of, going to sleep and the plant's no longer setting out any like new growth. But the second best time would be like now. It would be like late winter. So I would try to do this sooner than later because your Nico is probably going to start, sending forth a whole bunch of like green leaves and new growth. So you probably can, move the Nico now. If you can wait till like the end of the season, I'm not sure how precious this plant is or, how much you love it, but if it's a really, really special one, you might want to wait until fall and do it. But the second best time to do it would be now while it's still dormant before that spring season kicks in. And really important when you're moving hydrangeas or when you're moving any plants, make sure that you really get like a big like root ball, because sometimes people will go in and they'll go to move their hydrangeas and say like the hydrangea plant is say this big. They'll kind of dig really close to like the base of the plant and lift it up. And what they actually did was they cut off half the root system, because hydrangeas have like really, like large root systems sometimes. So you want to like do like maybe like, I don't know, like a 3-foot circumference around the base of your plant. And you want to make sure that you get like as much of that root system as you can. And then when you like dig it up, make sure that you put it into like a hole that has like, it's maybe almost like double the size, and then kind of backfill that hole in with a little bit of good compost, like organic compost, so it can be like fed properly and the soil's kind of loose. And then when you put that in the ground, it just lets the roots kind of set in place a lot easier than if it had to, just do it with a small little root system in a very tight hole, breaking into that really like, cement-like soil. So give it like lots of extra room, make sure the soil's kind of soft around it, pack the plant in the ground though, nice and, so it doesn't have any air pockets, and you should be good to go. Let's see. Oh, okay. So I hope I'm saying your name right. H-U-Y, Hugh. Is it Hugh Throng? He says, I live in Virginia, zone 7B. I have a spot that only has the afternoon sun. Will it help the hydrangeas doing these spots? I think so. Listen, I think if you kind of break up the sun, so it sounds like you have afternoon shade and it sounds like you have afternoon sun, and then you have like the reverse of what I said before, being like dyslexic with the sunshine. I think it's still fine. I think as long as like your hydrangea has, like half day sun, half day shade, it should be fine, even if it's like a reversal of like the morning. So that should be fine. It was a confusing way to answer that question. Sorry. Let's see who else is here. Oh, okay. So Liza Ortez, my leaves seem to be folding and like kind of shriveling. I have them where they get sun half the day, so that's good. What are you doing wrong? Okay, so here's the story. And I'm so glad you asked this. This is great, Liza. A lot of times people get confused about the watering issue. And so hydrangeas, they love water. I mean, I think the prefix hydra means water or like water lover. So hydrangeas love water. However, they hate having their roots in puddles. And a good rule of thumb is when you're watering your hydrangea, take your finger and stick it into the soil about 1 inch or 2. And if that soil is dry, then give your hydrangea a shot of water and water it from the base. So like put the hose by the base of the plant. And if you put your finger in the soil and it's wet, leave it alone. Because a lot of times what happens, and this happens to poinsettia plants too. I made a video on, how to keep a poinsettia plant alive like year round, even if you're in like the north. Basically what happens is when a hydrangea plant or a poinsettia plant gets too much water, the leaves start to shrivel. And so when the leaves start to shrivel, we look at the plant and we're like, oh, it's thirsty. Let me give it more water. And what we're really doing is we're like drowning it. So when a hydrangea plant doesn't have enough water, the leaves will start to kind of shrivel. And when a hydrangea plant has too much water, the leaves will start to shrivel. So the best way to avoid overwatering is, like I said, put your finger in the soil by the base of the plant. If it feels, dry, 2 inches or 1 or 2 inches down, give it water. And if it feels moist, leave it alone, because we tend to kind of overwater these guys sometimes. And then it gets something called root rot. And what happens is, like, those beautiful, thick, gorgeous roots that, are the system that like gets all the nutrients and gets all the waters, and it kind of acts as like a highway for all those things to shoot up into the plant and send out those beautiful blooms. Those roots get soggy and they get squishy, and it's almost like, instead of having like a nice straw to suck up all those nutrients, you almost have like a wet noodle. And then those nutrients get clogged up and the water gets clogged up, and then nothing reaches the leaves and nothing reaches the blooms. So make sure that you don't overwater, otherwise that might happen. And another thing that happens with our hydrangeas is they're beautiful and lush and green, but they don't give us blooms. And this happens to like so many people. It happens to me. And sometimes that happens because you have too much nitrogen in your soil. And nitrogen is one of those nutrients that gives you super beautiful, healthy, lush green leaves. And it makes the plant so happy. But sometimes if you have too much nitrogen in your soil, the plant is so happy that it says, well, I don't even have to shoot up like flowers. We're doing so great with this, green leaf party, that I'm not going to give you any blooms. And so you have to be careful you don't have too much nitrogen in the soil. And this happens a lot because a lot of times people have their garden, like their garden beds right next to their lawn. And when you're fertilizing your lawn, the lawn fertilizer has this like nutty amount of nitrogen in it, because of course you want your lawns to be super green and lush. So as you're doing like the little, like fertilizer cedar that has all that, lawn fertilizer in it, that has a huge percentage of nitrogen in it. That's going to make your lawn look beautiful. But what happens is then the rain comes in and it washes some of that fertilizer into your garden beds. And then all of a sudden your nitrogen level like spikes and your hydrangeas get gorgeous and green. And then you don't see one bloom on it. And you're like, wait, what happened here? That might be one of the reasons why you're not getting blooms on your hydrangea. So make sure you have enough sunlight. Make sure you have the proper watering. Oh, and make sure, guys, that you don't do overhead watering. So this was another no-no that I used to do. And I would overhead water. And then, the night would come, and sometimes temps at night would dip. And then like the next day or two, I'd have all these brown, ugly spots, like, the brown, ugly spots that are on the hydrangea leaves, they would start forming. And that's because when I would overhead water my hydrangea, the night temps would drop while the plant was still wet, and it would cause almost like a fungal issue on the leaves. And so a lot of times that's all that brown spotting is it's because it had a lot of moisture on it at night when temperatures dropped, and then it might have caused some like mold or fungal issues on there. So a good way to avoid that is to just water your hydrangeas at the base. And that's like a good rule of thumb for a lot of your plants. They kind of have the same issues. So water at the base, get the hose going, down by the roots, and that's like a really good idea. Let's see who else is going here. Oh, I pronounced your name correctly. Was it Hugh? Oh, thank you. Do I think, will hydrangeas do well in a rain garden? I'm not sure what a rain garden is. What is a rain garden? I tried to like uncover that in my mind. So I'm not sure what you mean by like a rain garden, not to sound foolish, but do you guys know what a rain garden is? Tell me. Now I want to Google this. What's a rain garden? Oh, good question. How do you amend too much nitrogen? Okay, Madeline, great question. So a great thing to do is to do a soil test. So first of all, let's figure out what's going on with this hydrangea if it's not blooming. Do a soil test, and you can basically just, I think I put it in my last video, like a live video that we had. There are called cooperative extensions in every state, and you can go online and you can Google, like I would Google New Jersey soil test, or I would Google New Jersey cooperative extension, and then Rutgers University pops up, and I'll go on the website and it will tell me how to send them a soil sample. Like, you pay for this, you send it out, you take like a sample from your soil, you like dig down a couple inches because you don't want to send in the topsoil. You want to send in like the bottom soil. And then you send it out to them and they tell you what kind of nutrients you have. But if you want to amend that nitrogen, you can just put some like wood mulch around the hydrangea. So never build up mulch around the stem of the hydrangea. You want to always like dig like a little gully, like a little well, and maybe like a couple inches out, 6 to 8 or like a foot out, lay down some wood, chip mulch, and eventually that helps to kind of get rid of some of that nitrogen in the soil over time. So that's like, I think, one of the best ways to do that. I still want to see what a rain garden is. You tell me, you leaving me hanging here. Trying to read these faster. What do my hydrangeas have? Yellow and non-green leaves. Oh, good question. So they might, let's see who gave me that one. This was Alia Lennox. So there's a chance it might be missing some nutrients. Actually, it might mean that you don't have enough nitrogen in your soil. So we have the exact opposite problem. So some of the leaves are going to turn yellow because either they're diseased or because they don't have enough nitrogen in them. So like when you're looking at the bottom, like the back of your like fertilizers, they have like the 3 numbers. And so the first number is the nitrogen. And then the second number is the phosphorus. So you might just need to give it like a boost of nitrogen. You might want to find like, I think rose food has a little bit of a higher concentration of that nitrogen. And then guys, when it comes to like to fertilizing the hydrangeas, which is like a whole nother like huge discussion and back and forth, some people love to use the fertilizers that have the middle number, which is the phosphorus, because the phosphorus is the ingredient that usually like boosts like your flower or like your blooms. And so a lot of people will try to find some of the products that have a little bit of a higher concentration of that phosphorus, that middle number. Other people, especially people that are like hydrangea specialists, I've seen them recommend, and it's almost counterintuitive to what we were just talking about, they'll recommend rose food for your hydrangeas to put down in spring. And rose food has like a little bit higher concentration of nitrogen than that phosphorus. And you're kind of like, wait, how can that be? You know, phosphorus gives you blooms, nitrogen, you know, makes the green leaves. Why would I want that nitrogen number to be higher? And I was talking to my friend Lorraine. I wish I had her book here. I'm going to put a link to her book below. She wrote this fabulous book on hydrangeas. You know, I asked her, I said, you recommend using rose food, but it has a little bit of a higher nitrogen concentration. What about, you know, not wanting all those green leaves? And she said, no, it's not that high concentration that you're getting of nitrogen like you get in the lawn fertilizers. It's just a little bit higher. And she said that nitrogen gets absorbed from the hydrangeas faster than the phosphorus does. So the idea is that over time, they kind of like level out and kind of meet each other like halfway in the middle. So I'm going to experiment this year. I'm going to do some of my fertilizing with rose food around some of my hydrangeas. And I'm going to do some of my fertilizing with the plant food that has a little bit of the higher phosphorus concentration. And I think it's called like Bloom Boost. I think Miracle Grow might have something like that. If you go to like Home Depot or Lowe's or your garden centers, just take a look at those numbers. And I'm going to try one that has a little bit higher phosphorus concentration. And I'm going to try the other one that has the rose food that has a little bit higher, just a tiny bit higher though, of the nitrogen, and see which one does better. But make sure that you keep your plants away from the giant, you know, nitrogen concentrations of the lawn fertilizers. Hugh, okay, thank you. A rain garden is a depressed area in the landscape. Oh, right, Dur. Okay, I do know what a rain garden is. I was just having a senior moment. So a lot of you will have like wet areas in your garden. And this is great. It is called a rain garden. And so it kind of has like a sunken area there where like a lot of the water collects. So like you're going to look for plants that love being in, you know, like that don't mind having the wet feet. I wouldn't put a hydrangea there. So that's a super question because that's going to be like a wet foot issue. So I would definitely look for plants that, you know, that are like weeping willows. Like they go bananas when they're in wet. Like they'll just take over the whole garden. And so like plants that love that would be best for a rain garden. So thank you for that. Love those senior moments. Aren't they fun? My gardens are great. Oh, thank you. Someone else said rain gardens are gardens which use the rainwater harvesting method. So the soil remains and the rainwater for a longer time. Oh, okay. So here you go. So another thing, I guess this is like more of a definition of the rain garden. Sorry, I'm being super thick today. So like the rain gardens, a lot of people will collect them, I guess, like the barrels that are coming off the house. And so, yes, so like you don't have to like worry about irrigating them with like your hose, because you can actually have that water saved from the rain barrels. Am I finally catching on to this concept, you guys? I know sometimes I'm a slow learner. So this, okay, so the soil will remain when the rainwater, okay. Thank you, sure thing. Do soil tests at Lowe's? I don't, all right. So Liza asked, do the soil tests at Lowe's work? You know, I have to say, I'm not really sure because I haven't used them yet. So I'm not sure which ones are the most accurate. You can try them, and actually it might be like a quicker way to do it. So, I mean, you could try out the actual soil tests that are there. So give it a shot. And let me think what else I wanted to tell you guys about. I'm looking at some of the other questions that some people had sent, also in through like past comments. Oh, somebody said that they love the idea of having hydrangea blooms like in vases in their house, but they don't want to cut off the blooms that might be coming later on. So like, what's the rule of thumb with that? So usually my rule of thumb with that is when you're going out to like cut your hydrangea blooms, you know, you can cut them like a foot long stem, or even like, you know, like, I don't know, like a 16-inch stem, and just make sure that there's a whole bunch of green leaves on the bottom of that cut. And then you could just bring the bloom into the house, you know, and kind of strip the leaves and put it right into the vase. And then as long as there's like, you know, like a big healthy chunk of stem left, then you should be fine. And when those blooms are set in place in fall, they'll be set in place on like that lower stem. And if you're cutting it from like a limelight hydrangea or from an Annabelle, then you're not even going to have to worry. You can like cut as long as you want, because all those stems, you know, you're not going to worry about them having new blooms the following year, because all that new growth is going to come up and give you the blooms. So that's the story with that. And then some other people had asked me about deadheading. They're like, you know, should I deadhead? Should I not deadhead? Should I leave them on the plant? I like to deadhead my hydrangeas, and deadheading is very, very different than pruning, because when you're deadheading your hydrangeas, you're basically just cutting off, like you're snipping off that bloom. So that's very different than like cutting, you know, the stem way back. So you can deadhead your hydrangeas on any of them, you know, throughout the summer, especially if you want to bring the blooms into the house. Like I said, just give it like, you know, like if the bloom is beautiful, just, you know, cut it like maybe like a foot. And then that's almost like a mini form of deadheading. Deadheading is really when you cut it like right, you know, you cut like the flower bloom from the top. And then it's just going to give the plant more energy to push forth, you know, more green leaves and more blooms. And so it helps the plant not have to support like those heavy flower heads if they're kind of burnt, especially if they're kind of burnt up or shriveled up or they've seen better days. You can kind of clip those back. And then sometimes at the very end of the season, I'll just kind of leave whatever blossoms are left on my plant for winter interest in my garden. So I'll do like a lot of deadheading throughout the summer, and I'll do a lot of like, you know, vases of hydrangeas, and I'll snip them. And then at the very end, I'll leave a whole bunch in place, and it kind of helps the birds, and it gives some cover to the animals, and it helps to feed them. So another question that I had was someone had asked me about planting hydrangeas from seed. And I wouldn't recommend this. I don't know if any of you have had any luck with this. I feel that like by the time that you get a plant from a hydrangea that was planted from seed, you may be like, I don't know, like a couple years down the road before you even see a little bit of growth. And then you got to wait for it to grow even bigger. So sometimes with hydrangeas, you know, it's better to go big or go home, like get it an actual established plant, put it in the ground and let it take off so that you can get those blooms faster. But I don't know, guys, let me know if you've planted hydrangeas from seed. So I don't know, let me know. Oh, hugs from Poland. Hi, Mira. Oh, how nice. Thank you for joining us from Poland. I love seeing when you guys are all over the place. Question about paniculata seedlings. Oh. So in Poland, it's now, will they lose these leaves after planting in the ground in April? Let's see. I have a question. I'm sorry that I'm trying to read this as I'm thinking about it. Are they going to lose the leaves? Oh, interesting. So listen, some of the leaves that are on your paniculata, which are like the limelights, a lot of those leaves, if they're brown and they're kind of green, you know, like get rid of them. But like I said, all that new growth is going to be coming up. If you're lazy like me, you can just leave it in place. Some of those leaves are kind of like brown. Most of them have probably fallen off already. You can just leave them in place, and then like the new growth is just going to kind of take it over. But if you want to remove those spent leaves, you can do that too. That's fine. It won't hurt the plant. So let me think what else I want to tell you guys. Oh, this is a terrific tip for when you bring your hydrangeas in the house. Hydrangeas are notorious for flopping in the vase. Don't you hate when that happens? Like you'll either, put them in the vase from your garden, or you'll get them at from ShopRite or Trader Joe's. And what happens is hydrangeas have this like syrupy, sappy, gooky substance that runs through their stem. And what happens is like you'll cut them, and sometimes you'll have like a beautiful bouquet of hydrangeas in your hand, and you walk around the garden with them, and then you come in the house and you plunk them in some water. Now, what's happened from the time that you cut them until the time you put them in the water is that sappy substance has formed a scab on the bottom of your stem. And so when you put it in the water, that water is going to have a really hard time getting through that scab. And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that when you're out cutting hydrangeas in your gardens, you have a bucket of water right next to you. And the minute that you cut that hydrangea stem, you're going to want to cut it on an angle. So you want to have like a maximum like surface area. And you're going to cut the stem on an angle and plunk it right in water. And some people will even do the extra step where they'll come inside and they'll give their hydrangea like a second cut under running water, just to make sure that that gook doesn't cause that scab. And then what happens sometimes too is sometimes there's bacteria that starts to form in the vase. And this is like a natural thing. It happens. And sometimes that bacteria gets into the stem and it clogs it up. And so what you're going to do is the minute that you see your hydrangea starting to look a little, oh my God, what is this 4.9? This is so funny. This is the first time that I've seen this. I guess you can do like a support system with the live chat. Thank you, James from EC. I didn't know how that worked until now. So with live chat, sometimes you can like support YouTube channels like mine. And then like I know for my channel, like I'll use some of this money towards like better audio and better video. I'm trying to hire someone to do my video edits. So I appreciate that. That was that the first time I've actually seen that happen. You like took me by surprise. Thank you. I appreciate the support, James. But anyway, so as that bacteria starts clogging up those stems, you're going to want to just gently lift it out, and you're going to give it like a 1-inch clip from the bottom. And that's just going to free up your stem, and it's going to allow the water to start fluffing out that plant again. And so what happens is like, you'll start to see like the hydrangea kind of flopping slowly but surely. If you wait 2 or 3 days for that to happen, it's going to be too late. So the minute that your hydrangea starts to kind of flop in the vase, make sure that you gently lift it out of the vase. So you're going to take it from the stem, and you're going to kind of reach in the arrangement, and you're going to lift it out. Don't do what I used to do when I was just starting out. I would like grab the hydrangea from like the head, and I would pull it up, and then I would either pull the flower bloom off the stem, which wasn't very helpful in reviving it, or I would crack it and I would make it worse. So never touch your flower blooms that you're working with in an arrangement from the head. You're going to take it from the stem, lift it from, the plant, from the plant stem, lift it out, and then give it that little cut, and it should poof right out. It's actually amazing. And make sure your hydrangeas are in a cold area. Sometimes people will put their cut hydrangeas in front of a window, and the window has like a lot of sunlight coming in. And then what happens is the hydrangea starts to flop because it just had too much sunlight on it. So you want to make sure that you put it in a place that doesn't get direct sun. And if you want, you can even put it in like a garage or a basement overnight, and you'll get like days and days of more vase life because you kept it cool and you kept it away from sunlight. And you can even add like a little bit of sugar, like maybe a teaspoon of sugar, and believe it or not, like a teaspoon of vodka to give it like the nutrients and the antibacterial that it needs. So the vodka is going to act as the antibacterial, and it's going to kill the bacteria that's in the vase. And the sugar is going to act as like that plant food. So that's awesome. Yep. All right, you guys, this is like so fun. Oh, James says the fabric I'm seating in. Oh, that's so funny. So the fabric that I'm seating in is identical to the bedspread that you have at your home. I have to say, I think I got these pillows like, I don't know how long ago, but I love them. Doesn't it look like you're in like a flower garden? So yeah, I try to have some floral stuff. Oh, and I'm looking at floral trends online today, guys. And apparently the trend for gardens is to bring your living space outside, which makes total sense. So like people are going bananas, like bringing like a lot of outdoor furniture outside with lots of pillows and stuff like this. So I love when you're outside and you know, you're kind of like sitting in your garden. But I started to bring like kind of like random chairs or like pieces that you find, you know, like on like, you know, Facebook when people are like, you know, trying to sell stuff or get rid of it fast. And then just putting like beautiful weather resistant pillows and stuff like this out there. And my husband Sheldon's really good. He'll like set up like almost like a place for us to have dinner at night. And he'll put like just like a folding table out there, and we'll put like just like a white tablecloth on it, and then like tons of candles and a bottle of wine, and then all these pillows on the chairs. And then you go out at night and you're in like this beautiful like makeshift setting that's just so fun to bring like the out, you know, like the sitting areas outside. So I'm going to try to start making more videos showing you how to like set up these beautiful spaces to just enjoy your gardens more. Thank you, Brian Ballou, for checking in from Denton, Texas. Very nice. All right. I hope I don't say your name too wrong. Rukia Palacheri, he says, how did you learn? I guess maybe you're asking me like how I learned about gardening. So I basically, I have my 4 kids. And when I was, you know, when they were little, we used to spend a ton of time outside, because if you've ever chased 4 kids around, you know that you kind of have to run them like horses. Otherwise you have to entertain them all day. So we would constantly be outside. And I started just like tinkering in the garden and trying to figure things out. And we had a landscaping plan. This is an interesting story. We had a landscaper come in and do like this whole garden, you know, design for us, which I was so happy about. And they put in like this mulch bed that was beautiful. And they put in, you know, like shrubs and arborvitaes. And then like my dream was to have like beautiful flowers everywhere. And when we first had the plan that they made up for us, you know, it said, here's perennial flowers and here's annual flowers. And this is what they're going to, you know, they'll be bordering your property. And I was like, that's great. So when they came in and they were done with all the plants and they were done with doing the mulching and everything, there were no flowers. And they said, okay, you know, it's time for your final payment. And I said, but there's no perennial flowers and there's no annual flowers. And the person said, well, listen, lady, you know, you have to decide what you're going to plant there. We just said that it's going to be perennials. And I said, I don't even know what a perennial is. And they were like, well, that's, you know, that's not part of our service. And I was like, what? So then I had this big giant garden bed with some beautiful like background shrubs and no color. So I would pack up the 4 kids, literally packing up 4 kids in the car. It takes like an hour. I would pack them up and I would bring them to our local garden center, which was called Cornucopia at the time. It was in like East Windsor, New Jersey. And John, who was the owner, would literally like walk me through like all of these perennial flowers. And I know a lot of you know, but some of you may not. Perennial flowers are the flowers that come back every year, or the shrubs. So like hydrangeas are considered perennials, and you'll put them in the ground and they come back year after year. And then he would show me all the annual flowers that they had. And the annual flowers are the flowers that, you know, you have to plant each year. So here in New Jersey, I need to plant like my marigolds every year. I need to plant my sunflowers and my begonias and my zinnias, because, you know, they're kind of like a one and done. They only come up for like one season. And so I started, you know, I would bring the kids there and they would run around. They had like all sorts of swings. He was so smart. They had I think they had a swing set there, or a gazebo that the kids were playing. And I would figure out how to do this. And then eventually we moved to a farm in the next town. And I said to my husband, you know, the kids have, you know, they're all, I think Jack, my youngest, started kindergarten. And I'm like, I want to start a small flower business. And then we really had to figure things out. So it was a huge learning curve. I had no idea what I was doing, but this was 10 years ago. And I have made every mistake in the book, and I have killed tens of thousands of flowers. And I want to save you guys the pain of doing all the mistakes that I made. And I want to try to make planting your gardens as easy as possible. So that's basically how I learned. So yeah, and here we are. So let's see who else we got here. Oh, hi from California. Hi, Linda, Sue, Stewart. So nice to see you here. Hi, Daryl. All right. So guys, I want to ask you, and I ask you guys this a lot. I want to come up with, oh my God, Liza Ortiz, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Oh, I said your name correctly. Well, thank you for supporting this channel, Liza. I appreciate that. Wow. This is like blowing my mind right now. I can't believe this. I feel like one of those, like, the kid gamers where I think they do this. This is like an amazing thing. I really appreciate the support you guys are giving to this channel. And if anybody knows of like a really great video editor, that would be great, because I'm looking to hopefully hire someone eventually when we get more support like this, because I have a really hard time with the edits on some of these videos, which is why I like doing live, because I feel like I can give you guys so much more information than when I'm sitting there kind of cutting and pasting in the back of my iMovie, which I think you need to be like in your 20s to figure out how to do. Anyway, so no, I lost my train of thought. Can I plant mammoth sunflowers now in Massachusetts? Super question, Daryl. I would hold off. So my rule of thumb with planting any kind of like your annuals, especially here in the Northeast, is to wait until Mother's Day. So I would wait until Mother's Day and then even give it like another, maybe like week, because you want that soil to really get nice and warm. And like I said, I want you guys to learn from my mistakes. So about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I think I put in like 5,000 sunflower seeds. I have something called an earthway seeder. And you kind of, you dump all the seeds in and you walk up and down the rows. And basically, I think I planted them like this time of year. And then we had this crazy frost and it got really cold and the ground got really tight and then it rained and then it turned to ice. And then I don't think I got like one sunflower, because I was like, I just planted too soon. So if you want, you can start planting your seeds inside. I know a lot of people will do that. They'll like, plant the seeds inside. And then when temps warm up, like after that Mother Day mark for us, I think Massachusetts, I think Daryl, you're probably like me. I think that there were like 6, maybe you're planting zone 6B. So that's a safe time to then put it in the ground. But keep in mind, if you do plant your sunflower seeds inside, they have really like long roots. So make sure that you keep an eye on that, because a lot of times people will plant their sunflowers in those, cute little, like the planting trays that they have. And then what happens is that the roots have no place to go. And they start like building almost like a nest around the plant. And then when you lift out the plant to put in your garden, you've got almost like this hairy nest of like roots, and then you kind of have to break them up, and it's this, kind of a pain. So either, get like big enough containers to put your sunflowers in early, and that should kind of solve that trick. So are any of you guys planting your seeds inside now? I know a lot of people like putting their seeds on like those heat mats to kind of get them started. And a lot of times people will put their seeds on those little like heat mats, because if you try to get them in front of windows, because they need that sunlight, a lot of times they get kind of leggy and they'll start like doing like one of these things, which is fine if you just have a couple of them. Like I still do that. I have some plants like in my kitchen and they kind of get like that, but it's not a big deal. You kind of put them in the ground later. But I know other people like to use those heat mats because the heat comes from there, and then they'll put like the grow lamps on top. And then, the plants will kind of like grow straight up because they want to get that light on them. So that's kind of the story with that. So yeah, let me know what you guys are planting. And oh, do I have a store? Oh, good question, Carol. Thanks for asking that, Carol DeBerg. So believe it or not, so once I killed all the plants on the farm and it was a disaster. And then I realized, which was really fun, that as I was selling my flowers to like florists, that I was getting like 20 cents a stem. So I'll never forget, I walked into like this florist with my son, Jack, who was 5 at the time. And we had these like buckets and buckets of like zinnias and marigolds. And I'm so proud. I'm like, oh, look at me. I'm a, businesswoman. And I walked in and the woman's like, well, I'll give you like 15 to 20 cents a stem. And I was like, what? What do you mean 15, 20 cents a stem? And she's like, yeah, that's, that was the going rate for what I had and the quality of my flowers back then. Like I wasn't quite sure what I was doing. And I was like, wow. So basically like we worked an entire summer in the field for like $10. So like that wasn't working. So I turned my flower farm into a florist. And one of my friends was wonderful. And she said, my friend Dana, and she said, I would buy flowers from you. Why don't you have a Flowers of the Month club? Her name's Dana McMahon. And I was like, what do you mean a flowers of the month club? And she said, I will buy a bouquet of flowers from you every week. And so I started, my farm's name is Cranberry Fields, and I started Cranberry Fields Flower Farm. And then we started doing, there was a teacher at one of my kids' schools, her name, Christina Sternevent. She said, oh my God, you have to do my wedding. I love your flowers. I love your bouquets. And I was like, I don't know how to do a wedding, but thanks anyway. She was like, oh no, I really want you to do my wedding. And so we did Christina Sternevent's wedding, and it was beautiful and fun. And then we started doing everything floral. So we did events and corporate and funerals and weddings. And so then we evolved into this full-blown florist. And now we ship our burlap wrapped flowers nationwide. So now we're nationwide. I'll put a link below to my online shop. It's called cranberryfields.com, and you can ship our flowers anywhere you want nationwide. And but now we're really getting big into like the garden influencing. Like I love this world. Like I love being with you guys. I love helping you guys, and I feel like this is more of like a calling right now. So my next thing is I want to come up with an online course for you guys. And I've been asking for suggestions and ideas. So if you guys can let me know what you would like this online course to be about, it would be really helpful. And so far, like the number one thing that I've seen our flower tribe ask for is for a course on how to create a fresh cut flower garden. And so right now, I think I'm going to go full hog into that. And I'm hoping to get this course ready in time for Mother's Day, because wouldn't that be like a fun gift to send to like your mom or your aunt or your grandmother or like your friend or your spouse? And this way, like you would go online and you would get like a little cute gift card that says, you know, I'm gifting you with the gift of like, you know, like flower love or flower knowledge. I don't know. But anyway, so I'm going to try to come up with that course, hopefully before Mother's Day. But if there's any other course ideas that you guys have, let me know, because I also want to put in like some free bonuses. Like my friend Bev Schreppel on Instagram said, can you let us know the best techniques for cleaning our garden tools? So I'm going to have like a free video on that other video, you know, the online kit that says, you know, here's how to clean out your you know, your cutters and your clippers. And I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. So any of your ideas would be so appreciated. And please make sure you come say hi to us over on our Instagram Cranberry Fields channel, because I keep doing seed giveaways. So I did like 2 seed giveaways. I gave away a whole bunch of sunflower seeds from our flower farm to people this week and last week, and we'll do more of those. So come say hi to us over there. Let me know that you found me on YouTube, because that just helps me, and it's like cross-pollination between the channels. And guys, I'm not sure if you were with us in the beginning of this broadcast, but I was saying how a lot of you have asked me for a place where you can post pictures of your own gardens and you can talk to each other direct. And so I created a Facebook group for us, and it's called Kelly Lehman's Flower Tribe. And please hop over there, because you can put the pictures of your flowers in there, and other people, you know, will ask questions about them, or you can ask questions. And I encourage you to answer each other's questions, because obviously a lot of times you guys know more than me, which is so awesome. And yeah, so somebody wrote something yesterday, said, you know, can somebody identify this flower? It keeps coming up in my garden and I love it, and I don't know the name. And I think it was a type of like Coreopsis. And someone said, oh, I know that flower. It's in my garden. So I encourage you to hop on over there to our Facebook group and let us know where you're from, because it's so fun to see where you guys are from over there too, and start the conversation and help each other, and we can kind of grow together. So that's like a really fun thing to do. And Darren said, I'd like to learn more about watering. Yes, I've killed more than a few shrubs by over and under watering them. Yeah, I think that rule of thumb that I told you with the hydrangea before about putting your finger like in the garden bed works for like a lot of plants, because most plants don't like to have their roots in water. They don't like to be sitting in like, you know, that sogginess. So I think if you reach down, and I think that if it's dry, then give it a shot of water, you know, and, you know, if it's really wet, then I would probably just kind of leave it be. Oh, and another really important thing I want to tell you guys about with hydrangeas is something called flagging. And this happens to like almost everybody. So in the afternoon, a lot of times you'll notice, especially your endless summer and Nico hydrangeas, like the blue and the purpley ones, they start to look deflated. They start to look like, you know, they're losing steam, or they're just flopping over. And what happens is it's just hot. It's almost like a heat exhaustion from the day. And there's nothing wrong with that bloom. So our inclination is to go out there and water it. And, oh, my poor hydrangea is thirsty. And look at it. It deflated. It looks so crappy. It's called flagging and it's natural. And 9 out of 10 times, it's probably going to just perk right back up at night. So before you go and worry about, oh my, look at these, hydrangeas, they're sick every afternoon, like at 2 o'clock, they just deflate, they look horrible, there's something wrong. It's probably just this natural tendency called flagging, and keep an eye on them, because usually by like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, if temps have cooled off and there's like a little bit, especially if there's like moisture in the air, they will perk back up by themselves, and they probably didn't even need water. So keep an eye on flagging. I was like, when I read about this online, I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what happens to my flowers. And there's nothing wrong with them. And I could stop fussing and fretting over them, and which I think helps too, guys. I feel like a lot of times I would fuss and fret over my flowers, and I would like overwork them and over fertilize them and overwater them. And they're just probably looking at me like, dude, leave us alone. Like, we're fine. Like, we've got this. So stop touching us and fussing with us. Just enjoy them. So maybe make a mental note to try to spend more time like enjoying your flowers, getting those garden spaces set up outside, getting some of those chairs and pillows. And even if it's just a blanket, like I love the idea of going out into the garden with just like a giant blanket and a whole bunch of pillows, and then like a meat, like some of the cutting boards that we have, or like, just like a cheese board, and just putting like some fruit and cheeses and wine, and just spend time out there. So just spend time just being and just getting some Zen moments and doing some deep breathing, and enjoy your gardens more instead of fretting over them. So I'm going to take a couple more questions. Let's see. Oh, hey, from Maryland. Hey, the everyday life. Let's see who else. Have buds. Oh, Andrea, thanks for sharing. Yeah, thank you. Andrea Winter said, thanks for sharing your story. Thank you for listening. I'm thinking, wow, that was like a really long story I just told them. I probably put some of you to sleep. So if you needed a nap, yeah, come onto my channel, because my husband says, okay, I'm ready for bed. He says, like, tell me about your day, because he knows that will totally put him to sleep after like 5 minutes. Oh, Cynthia says, thank you so much for talking about flagging. Yeah, I know. I didn't know about this flagging until I hate to even admit this, like 2 or 3 years ago. Oh, and guys, another thing, I know a lot of you are out there mulching now, because now is a great time of year to mulch. And it's important to mulch because you want to give your plants, especially your hydrangeas, like a little bit of like wood mulch, because it's going to trap some of the moisture that comes in from like the rain. But here's another thing that I did wrong over the years. I would over mulch. So I would like lay down like 2 or 3 inches of mulch year 1. And then I would lay down 2 or 3 inches of mulch year 2. And then I would continue every year. And after like year 3 or 4, I've got like 5 or 6 inches of mulch that never really completely decomposed. And as I would reach, I would see like all these mushrooms like popping up. And I would see like this white on the bark underneath it. And I'm like, what is going on? And it turned out that I actually had so many inches of mulch built up that it was acting as like a mold basin, and it was causing like fungal issues in my plant. So here I am trying to help my hydrangea, and in the meantime, I'm like stifling it and putting all this mold near its root system. So a rule of thumb that I have that just works for me, I'll put down like 2 inches of mulch like over my garden when it looks like it's kind of scarce, when I can kind of see the dirt. And then like I had laid down 2 inches of wood mulch last year in my garden. And this year I'm going to go out there, and if it looks like it's like it decomposed, because it does, it breaks down. So mulch will actually eventually break down, and it kind of, like it kind of turns, it almost looks like soil after a while. If it looks like that, I'll go ahead and I'll lay another 2 inches of mulch. But if I go out there and I kind of feel around and my mulch still feels like that wood and it's kind of thick and it's still doing its job, I'm going to leave it alone. And this way I'm going to save money, and I'm not going to have those mold issues that I've had in the past. And so another thing to consider, guys, is when I first put in that first garden that I told you when my kids were really tiny, and I had like all this mulch down. And then after like 2 or 3 years, I didn't apply any more mulch. And all of a sudden it was like weeds were everywhere. And so, I called up the company. I'm like, guys, I asked you to give me mulch to like suppress the weeds. And here it is 3 years later. And I've got like an entire bed filled with weeds. And they're like, yeah, lady, mulch decomposes and it makes for the perfect weed bed. And I was like, oh, Didn't know that. So that mulch will start to decompose, and it does make like the perfect planting ground is these like weeds. A lot of them are like airborne, like they'll get caught up in the wind, the seeds, and they'll replant themselves right in that decomposed mulch. So keep an eye on that. You want to kind of keep up with the mulch, that it's fresh and it didn't decompose too much. And on the years when I don't do the mulching, I will lay down some prune. So sometimes you guys have seen prune, you know, like your garden center stores, just in like the yellow bucket. And prune is like a weed preventative. And so this time of year, I'm going to sprinkle on the beds where I don't have the mulch, because the mulch will act as like, you know, like a weed suppressant. It kind of keeps the weeds down because they can't get the sunlight if the wood barks on top of them. But on the places where I don't do the new mulch, I'm going to just sprinkle some of this prune, and it's going to prevent the new weeds from coming up. And yeah, and so then that's going to be great. But you shouldn't sprinkle prune on garden beds that have weeds, because it's not going to kill the weeds. So it's not going to act as like a Roundup. So the prune is just going to act as like a weed preventative. The seeds won't be able to come up. But be careful, because you don't want to sprinkle prune any place where you've just planted seeds, because it may stop your seeds from also coming up. It kind of like, you know, kind of stifles the growth of, you know, like those seeds that it's sprinkled on. So that's just another little botch, you know, like debauchery that I did in the garden that I don't want you guys to do with the mulch. Okay. And yeah, you're welcome for the advice on the mulch. So, all right, guys. Well, I loved our chat today, and I thank you so much for joining me. I love seeing you guys here. It makes me so happy to see all you guys show up. I'm going to try to show up at 10:30 live on YouTube as much as I can. Like, that's my goal. Like, I want to get here 10:30 on Thursdays live. And so if you guys have questions, you know, feel free to ask them, you know, here during the live chat, which is awesome. I know that I can't get to them all the time, but you can also put them in comments below, because I'm going to have this video streamed, you know, and it will stay up here, and you could put the questions below, and I try to answer every question. I really do. Sometimes I'm better at it than others, and sometimes it takes me a while, but I do try to answer every question that comes up later on in like comments below. Sometimes the live chat stream, I can't always find it. But if you do the comments below later on, you know, if I didn't answer the question, maybe you can put it there, or in our Flower Tribe, you know, Facebook group, the Kelly Lehman's Flower Tribe group. I'll try to answer it there. And so I'll see you guys in the next video next Thursday at 10:30. And let me know some other topics that you'd like for me to cover during live chat. And in the meantime, I just posted a video yesterday about flowers for your home. And I showed you like one of our bouquets that were being shipped out. But before it was shipped out, I kind of walked through the bouquet. So I say, you know, here's blue hydrangea. This one's called trick dianthus. This flower is called alstroemeria. And then I give some florist power tips on if you wanted to make your own bouquet. Like if you had people coming over, I'm like, you know, run to the store and buy these types of flowers and just plunk them in the vase and you're all set. So I love to give you guys as much value as I can with my flower experience. And so I'm going to try to help you with some florist power tips each week and some gardening power tips each week. And so check that video out. You'll see it like on the channel, and check out some of those hydrangea playlists. And I hope that they will help you avoid all these crazy mistakes that I've made. And guys, I will see you in the next live video next Thursday. See you live. Bye. Now I have to figure out how to turn this off. Oh, I figured it out quicker this time. You can teach an old dog new tricks after all. I think the first live stream, it took me like 5 minutes to figure out how to end it. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Thanks again for showing up. I appreciate each and every one of you. And I'll see you in the next video.